Ever since I released my list about a week ago of the top 5 most powerful starships in the expanded universe, people have been asking me to do a top 5 list for the current canon. And I think this is a great idea because, to be honest, canon is a bit more restrained with their use of crazy warships when compared to the expanded universe, so I think it will be interesting to take a look at what the top 5 are, and it's going to be a bit more nitpicky than the previous list was. So that's what we're doing today, the top 5 most powerful spaceships which have appeared in either one of the 8 main movies, the Clone Wars TV show, Rebels, or a canon comic or book. So while every ship on this list is going to be canon, I might occasionally dip into the expanded universe to help get some idea of the ship's specifications, of their power levels, just because we don't really know a whole lot. Like Return of the Jedi never stops and explains, an Imperial 2 class is 15% stronger than an Imperial 1 class, so we are going to go to the expanded universe a little bit. But we're going to try to keep everything nice and clean and canon, so without further ado, let's jump right into the list. Number 5 is the Home 1 type MC-80 cruiser. And this is the most powerful ship fielded by the Rebel Alliance, at least up until the Battle of Endor. And what's really amazing about this ship and what puts it ahead of other Star Destroyers like the Tector class or the Victory class is that it's got a good mix of shielding, of firepower, and of fighter support. So unlike, for example, the Tector class, it has almost 100 X-Wings, Y-Wings, and A-Wings available to kick ass and fight other capital ships directly. And this is important because we know that Star Destroyers can be susceptible to snub fighters, and that's what really gives the ship an advantage over a lot of other things that didn't make this list. It's also got revolutionary shielding and is able to basically take a lot and still keep kicking. So that, along with its compact design, basically is one of the reasons the Rebel Alliance used it as a command ship during the Battle of Endor. However, what holds this ship back is its kind of small size compared with some of the other things on this list, and its lack of firepower. So while it's got great shielding, and while, its starfighters can take it pretty far, I'm worried about it head-to-head with some of the other ships on this list just because it can't really put out a whole lot of kick-ass. But as part of a larger fleet, this ship is extremely successful, and on its own, it's the 5th most powerful ship in the Star Wars universe. Number 4 on my list is the Imperial line of Star Destroyers, and I know, I can already see it, some people are going to say, EckhartsLadder, there's an Imperial 1 class and there's an Imperial 2 class. I know. I'm going to treat them both as the same. Especially because in canon, we don't really know what the differences between the two are. I've read some people that said that the Imperial 2 is probably around 20% stronger than the Imperial 1. We're going to treat it as all the same. Where this ship really shines is in its size and in its firepower. It's longer than the Home 1 class cruiser and has almost twice as many turbo lasers and ion cannons. It also dwarfs most other starships in the Imperial Navy, being almost 700 meters longer than, for example, the smaller Victory class Star Destroyers, which may not even be a part of canon anymore, but it would dwarf them if they were. And again, unlike the Tector class, it fields almost 80 TIE fighters, and that's a good amount. It's not as many as the Home 1 class, but it's enough to, protect it and let the big guns on the ship do some real damage. And I mean, the Imperial Navy was just filled with these things, and it was probably the most common Star Destroyer they had. We saw it was one of the first ships we saw in A New Hope, and it's what flies over the Tantive 4 and captures it. We saw one during the Battle of Hoth, we saw a bunch during the Battle of Endor, and we also saw one in Rogue One where we saw just how much a single Imperial 1 can do. It mopped up the entire Rebel fleet, so this thing is badass. The Imperial 2, even more badass. And maybe someday we'll talk about the differences between the Imperial 1 and the Imperial 2. For this video, it doesn't really matter, because they're both number 4 on the most powerful ships in the galaxy. Or, I think I said universe last time. Most powerful ships in Star Wars. Number 3 is the First Order's Resurgent class battlecruiser, and you might not recognize the name, but it's the First Order's Star Destroyer. And this thing is basically a beefed up version of the Imperial class. So, it's longer, it's got more cannons, it's still got a lot of starfighters, and it's basically meant to inspire fear in the enemies of the First Order, as was the Star Destroyer. So this thing has a huge boost in size. It's almost 3 kilometers long, whereas the Imperial class is about 1,600 meters, so 1.6 kilometers. So with that size comes a larger array of turbo lasers, of ion cannons, of defense turrets, of basically everything that makes a capital ship of this size useful. And the ship actually uses kyber crystals to further improve the power of its turbo lasers. That basically totally outclasses it from a normal Imperial Star Destroyer. And actually, one of the benefits that I think of this ship is kind of overlooked is the fact that the bridge is more squat and it's not such a big target like it was on the previous Star Destroyer classes. I mean, you look at the thing and they don't have two huge generator bulbs, they've got one really small one, and it's kind of unclear if you blow that thing up whether the whole ship would fall, but it's not the same thing that was going on, and it doesn't look like testicles either, which is kind of nice. And this thing is basically brand new by the time of episode 7, so that, along with its size, which is pretty much double of the previous ships on this list, put it at the number 3 most powerful ship that we've learned about in the Star Wars universe. Number 2 is the Subjugator class heavy cruiser, fielded by the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and more specifically, the Malevolence capital ship, because in current canon we only know of one of these ships, and it was the Malevolence. And I actually hate this ship because I think the design is just really boring, it's not good. I think it's kind of gimmicky and a little cheesy. But with all that being said, I couldn't ignore its feats, and I can't ignore its specifications. So this ship basically has an ion cannon, which allows it to disable entire fleets of ships. It's pretty much like a super weapon right on the side of the ship, so that gives it a huge advantage when in battle. And if not properly countered, this ship can basically take on one-on-one any ship in the Star Wars canon. It's also almost 5 kilometers long, it's got a good amount of turbo lasers, I guess, but not really for a ship its size. But again, it all really just comes down to the fact that this ion cannon, if not anticipated, can basically mess your stuff up pretty bad. I don't like the ship very much, so I'm going to leave it at that. But the Malevolence in the Subjugator class of heavy starships generally is the second most powerful ship on this list. If you've ever seen The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, you probably knew what was going to be number 1 on this list. It is the Executor class Star Dreadnought, and this thing is just so badass, and it could probably take all of the other ships on this list combined. And it's just truly in a league of its own. It's pretty much the only real dreadnought that Star Wars has in canon right now, and it's huge. It's 19 kilometers long, and that's basically as long as all of the ships on this list put end to end and doubled. And its firepower actually sufficiently matches its length, with over 5,000 turbo laser batteries and ion cannons, missiles, tractor beams, and just a shitload of TIE fighters that I can just spit out at a moment's notice. I mean, just look at an Imperial Star Destroyer when compared with the Executor, and you just know that this thing is a sheer force of will, and that's basically what the Empire has it for, to subjugate entire systems to its will. There's not much more I can say about this ship in the canon, just because I think all that can be said has been said, but if you run into this thing with anything short of a fleet, it's going to take you on single-handedly. And I will just say that I think the Rebellion got lucky when it took the Executor out at the Battle of Endor. If you want to learn more about the Executor, you can either check out my top 5 most powerful Legends spaceship, where it comes in at number 4, or you can check out my other video which talks about the Eclipse and how many Super Star Destroyers the Empire has in current canon. And I'm not sure if this Star Destroyer is going to still hold the top spot if I do this list again in 3 years, but it is just so badass that, it very well might, unless the Empire has an Eclipse Super Star Destroyer or something else. We know that they have a Super Star Destroyer called the Eclipse, but we don't know whether it's the Eclipse class from the expanded universe or just the name. But this ship could very well be the most powerful Star Wars ship in canon for a very, very, very long time. Anyways, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this list. As always, put your video suggestions in the comments below, and if you have any questions for my upcoming Q&A, which is supposed to happen this weekend, we'll see, also put those in the comments, and I'm sure I'll get to them either in the Q&A or in a rambling video. But I love you all very much. Thank you for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.